Welcome back. We continue Chapter 5 of The Sting of Mortality. Ebony Osgrove felt uneasy. He could sense a hostile presence was close. The vampire lord wandered over to peer out the window. Nothing. The streets were empty. Is there someone here, he wondered. A predator in the dark? No, it's only me, he thought to himself. Why is he taking so long? Hissed Deputy Oscuro. Do you think he knows we are here? Asked the shade closest to him. Maybe. Deputy Oscuro sighed. Perhaps he has run, commented another impatient shade. He'll come, assured Clove, mimicking the hoarse, raspy shade's voice. The vampire shook his head and cursed. Doubtful. Someone must have ratted us out. Patience. He will come. The Clove confided in the darkness. I am not so certain, grunted the vampire lord. A true warrior would never back down from a fight. He'll know you're coming, and he'll fight on his own terms. Ebony Oscuro glanced quickly about the room for the speaker. Then what is taking him so long, then? The lights. The vampire rolled his black eyes in annoyance. The lights are all off, idiot, he growled impatiently. Exactly. Oh, the lights are off. Kind of suspicious when every candle in the town is lit. He'll not walk into an ambush. He'd sooner wait for daylight and spring his own trap. Ebony Oscuro nodded in agreement. You six stay. The rest of you, without burning the building down. Light every damned candle, lantern, and torch in the place, he ordered. Except this room, the vampire roared, snatching a lighter from the shade's hand before the creature could light the candle wick on the window pane. The shades bowed and quickly filed out of the room. Ebony Oscuro anxiously looked out the window into the streets, the rooftops, and dark alleys as he drained the blood from his goblet, oblivious to the stealthy warrior bolting the door. The vampire whirled around, furious at the sound of a match being struck. What did I say? I said not in here! Not in here, you fool! He snarled. The lantern's light illuminated the room. Ebony Oscuro's jaw fell open in disbelief. There stood the yellow-eyed warrior, grinning smugly at him, with the extinguished match smoldering in his hand. The Clove's grin fell as the light revealed the pale white corpse of a woman in a white gown lying prostrated on the floor. Her throat had been cut. She was cold and stiff. The vampire grinned wickedly. You're late, he mocked him. lifting the silver pitcher from a small wooden table and filled a second goblet. Ah, but still warm, he declared. Drink with me. We have more to gain in friendship than I have in killing you. Le Clove replied by drawing Sangraluna. His vision began to cloud. Blood drained from his face as he trembled in rage. I'm going to rip out your heart, he vowed. The vampire lord chuckled dementedly. I am no ordinary vampire, he snickered wolfishly, and took a slender knife from the table and plunged it into his chest. After a few moments of carving, he tore out his own shriveled black heart and threw it at Le Clove's feet. Le Clove stared blankly at the vampire's lifeless heart in disbelief. Ebony Oscuro grinned. I sold my soul for true immortality, just like the Empress Kuredra. Ha! Seems like you got cheated. Kuledra's dead, Le Clove laughed. The vampire shook his head. Someday she shall return, and all who do not bow will be destroyed, he declared when he was cut off by a loud, guttural roar, and rushed at the vampire. On cue, the shades closed in on him like a black boar tide. The vampire lord's shrill, high-pitched whistle pierced through the raging storm of steel like a silent, soft, innocent, sweet tone. But in the ears of every shade outside, it roared like thunder. Snarling like a beast, Le Clove savagely whirled his blade in tow with the merciless rhythm, whirling around in deliberate, explosive, savage strikes and counters, moving in the eye of the storm with the grace of a tornado. Almost as fast as the storm began, it fell away, and silence followed. Le Clove stood alone amidst the corpses of the slain shades. Though victorious, he had not come out unscathed. Le Clove glared madly through bloodshot eyes and seethed painfully through clenched teeth. One arm clasped under a deep, bloody gash across the ribs, while the other gripped his bloodied sword. The wounded pyro collapsed to his knee, and the vampire laughed at him. Oh, look at that, exclaimed the vampire in mock glee, showing off the hole in his chest that had already healed. Join me, and you will never have to fear death again. The mortals laugh and ignore you now, but when you become a vampire, they will listen, and they will obey. Meanwhile, the shades outside began breaking down the door. How would you like to be immortal? The vampire was cut off by the sound of angry shades and the splintering of wood. Le Clove gripped his sword tight. I would rather live 5 minutes and die laughing while watching your body chasing after your severed head, he growled. Ebony Oscuro drew his sword. You are ignorant even to assume that you will live so long, he declared as the door fell in and the shades burst into the room. Le Clove lunged at him, but the vampire was graced in both supernatural speed and strength, and easily deflected Leclove's sword, and came in close, seizing hold of his throat. Undeterred, Leclove snarled and gouged at the vampire's black eyes with his bloodied free hand. Ebony Oscuro howled in agony and frantically clawed at his face to wipe away the pyro's scalding blood. Before the shades could come to their master's aid, Leclove seized the vampire and threw him through the window. Great shards of glass lacerated Ebony Oscuro's flesh as he tumbled through the air and landed on the roof. The clove quickly leapt through the broken window after the vampire lord to evade the oncoming shades. The clove finished the disoriented vampire off with a savage kick to the face and sent him toppling to the ground. Wounded, he quickly set down the drain pipe and fled through the darkness. The shades hurriedly came to their master's aid. Ebony Oscuro shoved them away. "Kill him!" the vampire cursed in anguish. Immediately the gathering of shades pursued after the wounded warrior. When Ebony Oscuro looked up again, he was overshadowed by the silhouette of a red-headed vampiress. Ebony Oscuro hissed as he pulled out a large piece of broken glass out of his shoulder. "What is wrong with you? What are you looking at? Can't you see? He's getting away." "And where is your master?" he demanded. Crimson tilted her head again and glanced over toward the way the warrior had run, and then back at Ebony Oscuro in shock as he struggled to get to his feet. "Helix is dead," she said at last. She had been waiting for years for just the right moment. Vampires, after all, didn't normally trip over their feet and impale themselves on their own. This mysterious yellow-eyed warrior was the perfect scapegoat. She had finally gotten her vengeance. Ebony Oscuro stiffened in shock. "Oh, what?" he gasped. "My master has been killed," she replied numbly. The vampire lord quickly grew silent for a long, dark moment. "Oh, this treachery will not be tolerated. I want the rebels and their families to be slaughtered," he commanded. "Which rebels does my lord speak of?" Crimson asked. Ebony Oscuro let out an angry hiss. "The whole city. They hired this wretch to come and defy us. Now they will pay the consequences. Kill them all and burn this decrepit fishing town to the ground. Leave nothing standing. Leave no one, young or old, alive," he commanded. "What about my family? Helix promised not to kill them if I went away with him," Crimson exclaimed in panic. Ebony Oscuro struck Crimson. The force sent her body crashing up against the far wall. "That was Helix's promise, and it has died with him," he snarled. The clove leaned on the side of the building, painfully clutching the wound on his side. Blood flowed through his fingers and down his leg. He could hear the shades coming behind him. The clove looked down and realized that he had left a blood trail. He knew he couldn't hide, so he ran until there was nowhere else to go except into the sea. The sickle-shaped moon above illuminated the glistening, rolling swells like a carpet of rolling black diamonds that hungrily beckoned him forward. The sound of heavy, seething, gasping breaths reverberated off the gentle lapping waves. Standing at the edge of the pier, the Clove turned his back to the ocean and faced his enemy. A dozen pitch-black eyes glared back at him as they slowly closed in. The Clove grinned. "What are you waiting for?" he snarled. The shades didn't respond and continued to slowly advance. The Clove let out a roar and charged head-on. The Clove was a blur of rage and cold steel. Their ranks collapsed around him. The Clove hurled him into the dark waters, taking as many of the wretched, rotting, dastardly devils with him, until he was driven back and he himself was fighting on the edge of the dock. A shade leapt at him. The Clove thrust his sword blade through its chest. The dying shade slashed at his head. The Clove caught the wrist and trapped the sword arm, and let out a rumbling, battle-crazed snarl as he savagely lifted the creature off its feet, using the shade as a living shield against the incoming blades. The shade kicked and flailed violently, its free hand at the Clove's throat. Finally he buckled under the pressure and lost his footing as he stepped back into the empty space. The Clove toppled over, taking the shade with them, plunging into the dark waters below. All the Clove could see in the gloom were the shade's cruel silver mask and its dark eyes staring down at him. The Clove wrestled to break free of the shade's death grip, sinking down, down, down. They plummeted until they thrashed amidst the long, slimy kelp, kicking up grey silt and grime from the dark harbor floor. Meanwhile, the remaining shades on the dock stood idly around, watching the air bubbles rise to the surface until the dark water settled back down into calm rolling swells, while swirling gray clouds of silt mixed with the oily black shade's blood came billowing up to the placid surface. It simmered around a river of scalding blood, now green from the salt water. The shades on the dock lingered there, eagerly waiting for the corpse to rise so they could complete their task. But when nothing came, the shades looked to one another worriedly and began meandering about the dock to see if the body wasn't bobbing around on the other side. When the body was not found, they began searching the boats and vessels tied off to the dock. But they found nothing. The Clove's lungs screamed for air as he viciously twisted his sword into the creature's chest until its glowing eyes faded. He kicked blindly until he was able to wrench his sword from the shade's corpse. Then, like waking from a nightmare, he was immediately consumed by darkness. The Clove panicked when the long kelp tangled around his body. He didn't know where he was. He couldn't breathe. His spirit cried out in desperation while he thrashed around blindly in the dark. His fingers raked across the grimy silt on the bottom. The Clove wildly hacked free from the vegetation that held him down and kicked off the silty floor, began fighting his way back to the surface. The Clove gasped for air as he clung onto the slimy wooden pillar beneath the dock. The Clove could hear the shades arguing with one another overhead. His eyes and nostrils burned with salt water as he waited for what seemed like hours, hugging onto the slippery pillar until finally the shades passed him by. Oklo slowly slid back into the water and silently treaded over to the small paddle boat. With the last of his strength, he pulled himself into the boat. Salt water mixed with simmering blood from his wound flowed onto the wooden boards. With one final effort, Oklo cut the boat line tied off to the dock and drifted through the night on the vast ocean. Darkness enveloped him as he drifted over the murky black swells. His body ached with every terrible, painful breath. It was so cold, the water felt like needles on his skin. The salt burned his wounds, stung his eyes, and parched his mouth. The young warrior gazed up into the night sky, but it held no light. The stars were hidden, and there was nothing to fix his eyes onto. He was alone, drifting in a cold, tormented oblivion. At times, he thought, he drifted into sleep, only to be brought back by the cold and his terrible thirst. Tears flowed down his face as he closed his burning eyelids, as he wished for an end to his agony. When something unexpected happened. An unexplained warmth washed over him, like the first morning rays, that saturated him to the very marrow of his bones, and taking away all the despair in his mind and heart. Who is there? Oklo asked weakly.
I am.
Who are you?
I am light to the lost. I am virtue. I am peace beyond all understanding.
Oklo's eyes fluttered open, but all he could see was darkness. Who are you? I can't see you, he gasped in dismay.
Who are you? I can see you. When you see the orphan, the widow, the oppressed, the captive, the defenseless, and the broken, you have seen me. We are well acquainted,
Responded the spirit's voice. A fresh wave of tears washed over his cold face, and he closed his eyes. I can't see you, and I can't help you. I can't help anybody, he groaned.
and I see all that I know.
Oklo shook his head. It's too late for me. I'm weak. I'm dying. I don't know how much longer I can last.
Who else will the oppressed call to? I am liberation, I am justice. Who will the orphans call their father? I am their father. Who will the dying call to? And I am life. So you have called to me, and I have answered.
I don't understand. I've only seen oppression and death.
I know, and in time you will know me better.
Up next, Chapter 6 Blood and Brine.